Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning's webinar. I'm Chloe Tetro. I'm the health coach here with Ready Care. And for this morning, we are going to be looking at purpose, how it affects us psychologically, neurologically, and more importantly, how we can harness purpose towards giving ourselves a greater scope for fulfilled life, and looking at some of the studies around that. Now, last week we talked about value-driven goals, values, and how these affect us and our capabilities for life enjoyment as well. So, excuse me, the two are very interrelated with each other, purpose and values, and we're basically just going to have a look at how the two can mesh together. So, what is purpose? A lot of people would be very, very familiar with the terminology, but essentially purpose would be what gives our life meaning. It's one of the, it's how we would explain, finding something that we find fulfilling, finding something that helps us get up in the morning. So understanding that concept of purpose and its facet in our daily life is very important to understanding our behaviors and our well-being. It's often defined as a sense of direction and meaning in life, and would kind of be above, kind of transcending just the ordinary daily tasks, daily lives and goals. It has a profound psychological and neurological aspect, and it's essential for mental health and overall life satisfaction. So if mental health and life satisfaction are something that have come up for you as something you want to focus on, having the value-driven goal that we spoke about last week and purpose together will help to bring that a little bit more together. So there is a book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's by a psychiatrist called Viktor Frankl, who was a concentration camp detainee, and he emphasized purpose as central to human existence, and argued that finding one's personal meaning in life, even under really, really difficult circumstances, is what drives human resilience and survival. It's what helps us go that extra mile when things are incredibly difficult, as they would be in his particular case. So let's have a quick look at the psychological aspects involved in that. Pow. And as always, if there's any comments or anything like that, give me a shout and I'll do my best to answer questions as they come up. So the exploration of purpose from a psychological standpoint will provide really, really good insight into its role in shaping human behavior and essentially as well motivation, which will tie it back to lifestyle and dietary changes. You're kind of thinking, Chloe, where are you going with your sense of purpose? But basically, understanding the purpose of your own intentions, your own actions, and at a greater scope, your own life purpose can really, really help support when things get exceedingly difficult. So in this part, we're going to have a look at the kind of multifaceted psychological implications of purpose, having a look at how it serves as a determinant of mental health and daily motivation. So around the chats on purpose, the talks on purpose is the concept of self-actualization. So I touched on that a little bit last week, but self-actualization is a theory by Abraham Maslow, M-A-S-L-O-W, in his known hierarchy of needs. Now, the hierarchy of needs is often thought of as this kind of pyramid with things like, security, safety first, and then as it goes up. But really, it's not as clear-cut as a kind of, you get one level, you reach the next, like a video game, Once security is done, that's it, done forever, you have your security. It's more like this kind of circular kind of fluid thing where all of the needs have to be looked after to then be able to, I kind of think of it more as concentric circles. You look after the ones outside, you can get inside more and more things that are more private, personal, and abstract with regards self-fulfillment and happiness. So Maslow's framework would suggest that to achieve one's full potential, which would be, encapsulated in the notion of pursuit of personal purpose, is the pinnacle of psychological development. It's really, really at the top. Once everything else has been looked after, it's really the kind of cherry on top that makes somebody's life worth living to the fullest degree of it. It's the greatest feedback one can get for energy put out. It's the most satisfaction, and well-being that one can experience. It really underscores the intrinsic human drive towards realizing purpose as a cornerstone of psychological well-being. Now, if we look at that in the inverse, if we find ourselves in situations in life where we feel like we have no purpose, and outside of taking it as the larger kind of life purpose things, bring it right back down to activities. If you're doing an activity and you go, I actually don't understand, I can't wrap my head around what the point of doing this is. I don't understand the point of this task I was given at work. It doesn't fit into the larger network. It's not bringing me anything. And I just don't particularly understand its role. You can see that it starts to really decrease motivation, really decrease self-worth, and really decrease the desire for output. And that's true on all facets. If you think of it as a conversation that you're having with a friend, loved one, relation, whatever it may be, as you're having the discussion, if you go, I'm really not understanding the point of this, we're not getting anywhere with this. This is lots of energy put out, which is not particularly serving any purpose. That starts to make somebody feel incredibly deflated. And that if you think of the words, what's the point? What is that resonance that you feel inside yourself? It's very, very, very seldomly this kind of drive towards, great feelings. And more often it's lackluster, lower feelings, not feeling good in oneself. So empirical research would look at the profound impact of purpose on mental health. There's a study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology that looks at the significance of the correlation between a well-defined sense of purpose and the indicators of psychological well-being, including enhanced life satisfaction, reduce susceptibility to mental ailments. I think that's really, really crucial. So if we're in that lackluster, lack of motivational stage for too long, we become more prone to psychological ailments, things like anxiety, depression, hopelessness. Similarly, there's research in the Journal of Health Psychology that's linked purposeful living with improved coping mechanisms. And of course it would, if we feel like we're part of something, that motivation and drive is there. Our coping mechanisms start to go up with that. We're better at dealing with stress and adversity because we start to not really see obstacles as large, insurmountable challenges. We think of them as, okay, I'm very driven, I'm very motivated. And when our drive and motivation goes up, we perceive obstacles as being less demanding than they would be when we are very, very lackluster and lacking that motivation and drive. The influences of purpose on daily motivation is a topic that's considerable in the academic field. Of course it would be, and especially in post-COVID kind of times, there's an awful lot of research gone into our sense of purpose. And if you think during COVID times, I think still it's being reported that lots of people are leaving workplaces that they may have been in for years and years and years because they had that little bit of, forced introspection of going, what am I doing? Do I want to be doing this? And it's those kind of questions that really drive our emotional hardware into motivation or that sense of feeling quite, I'm using the word lackluster a lot, but that type of feeling of being very, very deflated, and the experience of being very deflated and feeling like you have no role and no purpose on even a small scale is the absolute opposite effect of positive well-being and fulfillment. It makes somebody feel very, very flat and low and more prone to things like bouts of depression. There is a good talk on YouTube if you're interested. It's called The Science of Wellbeing, and it's a TED talk that would really look at that. And there's also another one called The Power of Purpose. Both of those will look at interpretations of the interplay between purpose and psychological functioning from a kind of academic factor that's very approachable. So that's a little bit about the psychological links with that. Let's have a look at the brain-based factors. So all guesses of who I'm going to mention first. It's the prefrontal cortex, which would look at purpose and motivation processing. So it's our primary processing drive with regards weighing up options, what's worth doing, what is not worth doing. So the region is integral to executive function, decision-making, planning, social behaviors, and would be involved in formulating and pursuing life goals. Neuroscientific studies, as outlined in the journal Neuroimage and Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, will demonstrate the activation of the prefrontal cortex in tasks that require self-reflection and goal setting. So from that research, it underscores the relationship between a well-defined sense of purpose and brain health. So the actual health of your brain improves with a clear sense of purpose. Studies, including those in the Journal of Neuroscience, look at the correlation between purposeful living and reduced cognitive decline, which is massive. You know, the age-based cognitive decline that lots of individuals unfortunately suffer from gets reduced with a clearer sense of purpose. That is massive. That it's a huge knock-on effect in health. This would suggest that engaging in purposeful activities would potentially fortify neural pathways themselves, which enhances that cognitive resilience as the individual ages. So the impact of purpose on the neural pathways, particularly in the context of stress response and mental resilience, is a huge area of interest at the moment. And it's kind of looked at that the purpose-driven individual might exhibit enhanced neural activity, which is better for emotional regulation and stress management. And from all of the research that's out there, cortisol and high stress levels are absolutely, not to be scary, but they're very detrimental towards brain health. So if there's anything that can help reduce stress and look after the corrosive effects that, you know, enhanced prolonged chronic cortisol can have on the brain, it is very, very, very worth doing. It's very worth taking, you know, the 20 minutes, half hour to have that self-reflection. And you know what, if it's slightly longer, depending on where you're at in your life, that's okay as well. But having the awareness that there's a huge payoff on a cognitive, mental, resilience, emotional level for giving yourself that time. And it is giving yourself that time, giving your brain that time, giving your workplace that time, your family that time of you functioning at your best, and reducing down that cortisol response. So that brings me on to kind of more practical implications and applications. So chatting about the relationship between those value-driven goals that we chatted about last week and finding a sense of purpose, they're intrinsically intertwined. There's a crucial role in shaping the life's direction and fulfillment. The value-driven goals, so finding out what's important to you, the few different values that you have noted as crucially important for you, and making decisions and basing goals around those. So for example, family might be one of your main values. How do you create goals that will fulfill more family time, more family aspects being in your life? That's what's meant by value-driven goals. These align with our core values, who we are fundamentally as a person, and our beliefs, and they act as significant markers in discovering, solidifying that sense of purpose. When our goals are rooted in our personal values, they resonate more profoundly with our sense of self and with the world. So that alignment provides a powerful sense of clarity and direction. So for example, if one values compassion and service goals centered around helping others, it won't just bring a sense of achievement in the here and now. So you will feel better because it's aligning with your value-driven goals, which fires off lots of endorphin, serotonin, lots of great things in the brain. But it will also solidify a profound sense of fulfillment and purpose. So it's a win-win situation where both feed each other and your sense of well-being rises up exponentially. Now, we don't all have the capacity to do that in our jobs, for example, in how we spend our time. You know, there's lots of different factors in our life that could potentially be barriers to that. But finding any ways to bring a little bit more of that. If you're in a career that isn't a kind of service, compassion and service, and those are huge values for you, could maybe an hour, 2 hours a week, could that be spared to doing something voluntary with an organization that you feel very passionate about? That will absolutely drive that. That brings up your motivation, it brings up your resilience, it brings down your response to stress factors, and it will help to keep your brain healthy. Like, it has a really, really powerful impact. It sustains motivation, and that can really have a ricochet effect into all aspects of your life. So that consistent pursuit will often lead to a clearer and stronger sense of purpose. Moreover, those value-driven goals will contribute to a sense of authenticity and self-congruence. When our goals mirror our values, we live more authentically, and that is one of the other strands that brings up the life satisfaction and well-being hugely. So giving yourself time to think about those things. And if that seems like a large topic, there's a little system, a little scheme called the Ikigai system, IKIGAI, that will help to determine what you're good at, what the world needs more of, what you can get paid for, and bring them nicely into a nice Venn diagram that can maybe help towards understanding where your own sense of purpose can be. Embracing that purpose-driven way of living has a massive implication on health. There's research in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research that demonstrates that an individual with a clear sense of purpose experiences those lower levels of stress and anxiety, which again, life can get very stressful. Life can have lots of unknown factors that can really subconsciously drive up our stress levels to a point that we're not really particularly aware that it's happening until we're in the midst of it. Same with anxiety. Anxiety's gone, has been on the up for the last number of years, especially in post-COVID. So having a strategy that will not only bring those down, but will actually help with your overall sense of well-being is really, really crucial. So that's a little bit for today with regards to purpose and value. If you have any questions or any comments, always appreciated. It's oftentimes, I find it strange and I suppose ordinary in some ways that we think of values and we think of purpose as these kind of nice to haves, one day when everything settles down, I can start to think about those things. But really just taking 10 minutes to bring a little bit more awareness around these things in our day-to-day lives can nourish us greatly and can really help us to have a better experience of our everyday, and can help us to counteract some of the stress-related factors that can negatively impact our health. So overall, a very, very good practice to start to get into. Right, that is me for today, guys. Have a lovely rest of your day and enjoy the looking into purposes and values. I'm throwing the heavy questions at you this morning. We'll talk to you later now. Bye.